A former casino slot technician just revealed something that could save you thousands of dollars. After 15 years working behind the scenes, he's finally speaking out about the machines casinos absolutely don't want you playing, and the two that actually give you a fighting chance. Let's start with machine number 1, Firelink series. Walk into any major casino right now, and you'll see rows of these glowing penny slot machines packed with players who think they're about to hit it big. According to insider data from former slot technicians, the base game return to player percentage sits somewhere between 87 and 88%. That means for every $100 you feed into this machine, you're mathematically expected to get back around $87. But here's what makes Firelink particularly devastating according to these former employees. The hold and spin bonus feature triggers constantly, maybe once every 30 or 40 spins, creating this intoxicating feeling that you're always on the verge of something massive. A woman named Jennifer decided to track her play over 3 months, keeping detailed records that former casino staff later reviewed. And she triggered that exciting hold and spin bonus 47 times during her documented sessions. Out of those 47 bonus rounds, only 3 paid more than 50 times her bet. The rest delivered small wins that barely covered the cost of the spins it took to trigger them. Former employees explained that this design is completely intentional. The frequent bonus triggers create an illusion in your brain that you're almost winning big, and that the next bonus round could be the one that changes everything. What makes this particularly insidious, according to former floor supervisors, is the combination. You're not just fighting a low return to player percentage. You're fighting high volatility that creates massive swings in your bankroll, combined with psychological manipulation that keeps you glued to your seat thinking the big win is just around the corner. The math doesn't work in your favor, but the machine makes you feel like it does. And if you think frequent bonuses that don't pay are bad, wait until you hear about machine number 2, Buffalo Diamond. This is the so-called upgraded version of the classic Buffalo slot that employees specifically warn never to play. While the original Buffalo machines reportedly offered a return to player percentage around 88 to 90%, insider reports suggest the Diamond version drops that down to somewhere between 86 and 88%. Former floor managers have documented that casinos specifically placed these Diamond machines in the exact locations where original Buffalo machines had performed well, knowing players would assume they were getting the same game with better graphics. A regular player named Marcus made the switch from original Buffalo to Buffalo Diamond, and over a 6-week period of documented play, he watched his bankroll deplete 40% faster. The cruel irony that former employees point out is that players genuinely believe they're playing an improved version of their favorite game. Those diamond symbols flashing across the screen create a perception of premium quality, of enhanced winning potential. But according to the former technicians who actually programmed and maintained these machines, you're paying for those prettier graphics with worse odds and faster losses. But what makes this machine particularly dangerous is machine number 3, Lightning Link, High Stakes Edition. Former employees didn't just warn against this machine. They specifically told me to emphasize the higher denomination version that casinos position in premium locations on the floor. Here's what makes this version so devastating, according to former slot technicians. While the return to player percentage remains similar to the penny version at around 87 to 88%, the minimum bet requirement jumps dramatically. You're looking at $2.25 to $3 per spin just to activate all the features. Think about what that means in practical terms. At 500 spins per hour, which is typical play speed on these machines, you're exposing yourself to $1,500 in hourly risk. An internal report that came across the desk of a former floor manager mentioned a player named Robert, who sat down at high-stakes Lightning Link thinking the bigger bets would lead to bigger returns. 4 hours later, he had burned through $8,000. Former employees who worked these floors called it the retirement fund shredder in their break room conversations. They watched players day after day, convinced that high stakes meant high rewards, and systematically demolishing their bankrolls at triple speed compared to penny denominations. But what makes this machine particularly insidious, according to these insiders, is how it exploits human psychology. The high-stakes label triggers something in players' minds, an ego-driven belief that they're playing a more sophisticated game, that bigger bets somehow improve their odds. Mathematics tell a completely different story. You're playing the same low return to player percentage. You have the same high volatility, just at an accelerated rate that drains your money 3 times faster. Before I reveal machine number 4, and trust me, what former employees say about this one will shock you. I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to this channel. Let me know in the comments which of these machines you've played and whether you've noticed the patterns these employees described. Now about machine number 4. Machine number 4, Dragon Link, Fortune Fever. This is the progressive jackpot version that employees specifically identified as the worst of the Dragon Link family. Walk up to this machine, and you'll see 4 progressive jackpots displayed prominently across the top screen, ranging from mini to grand. According to former technicians who actually worked on these machines, the trigger rates for the upper-level progressives are astronomical. As the base game return to player percentage sits at approximately 86 to 87%. But here's the critical detail these insiders revealed. A significant portion of your bet gets allocated to progressive pools that you statistically will almost never win. Documentation from former slot technicians suggests the grand bonus, which is your only shot at the grand progressive, triggers approximately once every 8,000 to 12,000 spins. Yeah, one former employee described watching the same grand jackpot sit at $32,000 for 3 straight weeks during their busiest season. A woman named Patricia became obsessed with that progressive. She sat at Fortune Fever for a 12-hour session, methodically feeding the machine, convinced she was due to hit something significant. $4,200 later, she walked away having never triggered the major or grand bonus. Former employees explain that the constant display of those progressive amounts creates a psychological phenomenon called false proximity. Your brain sees those numbers climbing and convinces itself that you're close to winning them, that they are somehow within reach. The brutal mathematical reality is that you're funding progressive pools you will statistically never win. Machine number 5 takes this psychological manipulation to an even darker level. And this is where the story gets genuinely heartbreaking. We're talking about Wheel of Fortune 4D Edition, the enhanced version of that classic slot machine you've probably seen 1,000 times, the one with the iconic wheel spin bonus that's been in casinos for decades. Former employees specifically mentioned this machine when discussing games they personally avoid, and the technical details explain why. While original Wheel of Fortune machines operated with a return to player percentage around 88%, insider reports from former technicians suggest the 4D version drops down to somewhere between 85 and 86%. But the real problem isn't just the reduced odds, it's how this machine exploits decades of brand trust that players have built up with the Wheel of Fortune name. As a former floor manager explained that their casino management team loved this machine specifically because players assumed the iconic brand meant fair odds without ever checking the actual mathematics. According to documentation from former slot technicians, that exciting bonus wheel triggers approximately once every 180 to 220 spins. When you finally do hit that wheel spin, most outcomes land between 10 and 25 times your bet. Think about what that means. If you're betting $2 per spin, you need to spin roughly 200 times at a cost of $400 just to trigger a wheel that'll probably pay you $20 to $50. The math never works in your favor. Here's the story I mentioned earlier about a player named Thomas. He was a regular at one casino who decided to track everything over 2 months of play on Wheel of Fortune 4D. He documented every session, every spin, every wheel trigger. And 28 times during those 2 months, he hit that exciting wheel bonus. His average wheel spin paid 18 times his bet. His total documented loss over that period was $6,400. What makes Thomas's story particularly devastating is what he told casino employees. He genuinely believed he was due for a big wheel spin because he'd been hitting small ones so consistently. That's the psychological trap these machines create, according to former employees. Those frequent small wheel wins convince your brain that you're close to something massive, that the big payout is right around the corner. Multiple former floor supervisors mentioned feeling genuine guilt watching regular players like Thomas pour thousands of dollars into these machines month after month, chasing wheel spins that would mathematically never make them whole. And if you think that's manipulative, Thus machine number 6 uses a trick that's even more insidious according to every former employee I spoke with. This machine is called Huff and Puff, and it does something that former casino workers described as borderline unethical. The game celebrates and plays winning sounds for spins that actually lost you money. Let me explain exactly how this works because it's genuinely disturbing. If you bet $2.50 on a spin and win back $1.80, the machine erupts in winning music and animations. Former employees called these losses disguised as wins, explaining that the machine literally tricks your brain into thinking you're winning when you're actually losing 70 cents. A former slot technician who worked on these machines for years told me they witnessed this psychological manipulation firsthand every single shift. His internal customer tracking data that came across his desk showed players stayed 40% longer on machines featuring these losses disguised as wins compared to traditional slots. Research in gambling studies has extensively documented this phenomenon and how it increases problematic gambling behaviors. Your brain releases dopamine when it hears those winning sounds, creating a pleasure response even though your bankroll is actively shrinking. A player named Angela sat at Huff and Puff for 3 hours, thinking she was roughly breaking even, based on all the winning sounds and celebrations. When she finally checked her player card balance, she was down $890. Former employees explained that they found this feature genuinely unethical because it's essentially lying to players about whether they're winning or losing. The industry defense is that technically any return counts as a win even if it's less than your bet. But former casino workers see it differently. It's psychological manipulation disguised as entertainment design. Machine number 7 combines everything we've talked about into one devastating package, and this is the final machine former casino employees specifically warned me never to play under any circumstances. We're talking about Zeus Unleashed, Mega Reel Edition. What makes this machine particularly alarming, according to former slot technicians, is how it layers multiple deceptive practices on top of each other, creating what one former floor manager described as a perfect storm of psychological manipulation. The base game return to player percentage sits at approximately 85 to 86% according to insider data, which is already lower than most of the machines we've discussed. But that's just the beginning of what makes Zeus Unleashed so problematic. The Mega Reel feature randomly appears during gameplay, maybe once every 200 spins based on documentation from former technicians. And here's where the manipulation becomes genuinely disturbing. Former employees explained that this Mega Reel was specifically programmed to show near misses for progressive jackpots with shocking frequency. You'll see 2 progressive symbols land perfectly, and then watch that third symbol sit just barely off screen, creating an almost one moment that burns into your memory. Internal documentation from former slot technicians reveals the actual odds of landing those progressive symbols during a Mega Reel appearance sits somewhere around once every 15,000 to 20,000 spins. But the machine shows you those near misses constantly, and engineering a powerful psychological response that makes you believe you were inches away from a massive win. Several former employees actually approached their management about Zeus Unleashed because they felt the near-miss programming crossed an ethical line. Management's response was straightforward according to these former workers. The machine was completely legal and players loved the excitement it generated. But what haunts these former employees isn't just the technical manipulation. It's the real-world consequences they witnessed firsthand. An elderly woman named Dorothy became a regular at Zeus Unleashed, and former casino staff watched her story unfold over 6 devastating weeks. She had received her late husband's life insurance payout and decided to try her luck chasing the grand progressive that sat tantalizingly at just over $30,000. $18,000 later, and Dorothy had exhausted that life insurance money without ever coming close to the jackpot she was chasing. Former employees who knew Dorothy's name and her story estimated she had roughly a 0.12% chance of hitting the grand progressive during the time she played. Multiple former casino workers specifically mentioned Dorothy when explaining why Zeus Unleashed represents everything wrong with modern slot machine design. It combines devastatingly low return to player percentages with extreme volatility, adds progressive jackpots that players will statistically never win, incorporates losses disguised as wins that mask true losses, and weaponizes near-miss programming to create false hope. What makes this even more troubling, according to these former insiders, is that Zeus Unleashed isn't an outlier in modern casino design. It represents where the entire industry is heading. Former employees explained that newer machines are being engineered with more of these psychological manipulation techniques, not fewer, because the data shows they're incredibly effective at keeping players in their seats and extracting maximum revenue. But here's where this video takes a turn that might surprise you, because two machines actually do have reasonable odds according to these same former casino employees. Yeah, and some of them actually played these machines with their own money during breaks. Now, you might be wondering, if those 7 machines are so devastating, which machines do employees actually trust? I spoke with multiple former slot technicians, floor managers, and casino hosts, and 2 specific machines came up repeatedly in those conversations. These former insiders used specific criteria when evaluating which machines offered fair gameplay. Higher return-to-player percentages, at lower volatility that doesn't create wild swings, transparent bonus structures where you understand exactly what you're chasing, and critically, no losses disguised as wins features that trick your brain. The important caveat these employees emphasized is that even these better machines still have a house edge. The casino always wins long-term. That's the fundamental reality of gambling. But these 2 machines offer significantly better odds and more transparent gameplay. Also, the first machine might surprise you because it's not what most people think of as a good slot. And the second one is a machine most casino visitors walk right past without realizing it, offers some of the best odds on the entire gaming floor. Machine number 8 is the Wheel of Fortune original 3-reel version, and multiple former employees told me if they were actually going to play slots with their own money during their breaks, this was the machine they'd choose. The key distinction here is critical. We're talking about the original mechanical 3-reel version, not any of the video slot versions we've been discussing throughout this video. According to documentation from former slot technicians, these older mechanical machines operate with a return-to-player percentage somewhere between 89 and 91%, which is significantly higher than the modern video slots we've been warning you about. Former employees explained exactly why these original machines offer better odds. The mechanics are simpler. There are no complex bonus features designed to hide the true odds from players, and the volatility runs considerably lower than those modern high-variance games that create devastating bankroll swings. A former floor supervisor named David told me that the old mechanical slots were built during an era when regulations were stricter about odds transparency, before casinos figured out how to use sophisticated programming and psychological tricks to maximize player losses. Now, the trade-off that former employees acknowledged is that these machines feel less exciting than modern video slots. There are no elaborate bonus rounds, no animated characters, no progressive jackpots climbing on overhead screens. But the mathematical reality is substantially better. At 90% return to player versus 86%, you're losing $10 per $100 bet instead of $14. That's a 40% reduction in expected losses. But the challenge with these machines is availability. They're getting increasingly difficult to find in major casinos because they don't generate the same profit per square foot that modern video slots produce. You'll have better luck finding them in older casinos or locals-oriented gambling halls that cater to experienced players who understand the mathematics. The verification method is straightforward according to former technicians. Look for actual mechanical reels that physically spin, not video representations of spinning reels. A regular player named Michael exclusively plays these 3-reel mechanical slots, tracks all his results in a spreadsheet, and reports breaking even or taking small losses over a year-long period. Former employees emphasize the reality check here. Even at 90% return to the player, the house still maintains an edge. You're still expected to lose money over time, but it's significantly fairer than the machines we've been discussing, and the lower minimum bets, often 25 cents to $1 per spin, mean you're not burning through your bankroll at the accelerated rate modern high-denomination video slots demand. Machine number 9 is the second machine former employees recommended, though it might not technically qualify as a slot machine at all. We're talking about video poker, specifically the Jacks or Better 9-6 full pay version. Former casino employees mentioned this game repeatedly when discussing what they'd actually play with their own money. With perfect strategy, this version offers a return-to-player percentage of 99.54%, making it the best odds of any electronic gaming machine on the casino floor, according to former slot technicians and floor managers. What former employees appreciate about video poker is the transparency. the odds are published. A player skill actually affects outcomes, and the mathematical probabilities are readily available for anyone who wants to verify them. The full pay identification is critical here. You're looking for a pay table that shows 9 coins for a full house and 6 coins for a flush, which is where that 9-6 designation comes from. Former employees emphasized that you must verify the pay table because many casinos now offer short pay versions that display 8-5 or 7-5, which drops the return to player percentage down to 97% or lower. The caveat these former insiders stressed is that achieving that 99.54% return requires playing with perfect strategy. Most recreational players make mistakes that reduce their actual return. A former casino manager named Richard told me that casino hosts and managers would play video poker during their off time specifically because they understood the mathematics and knew it offered the fairest odds in the building. Perfect strategy charts are freely available online and completely legal to use while playing. A woman named Susan learned perfect strategy, plays quarter-denomination video poker, and reports average losses of about $5 to $15 per 4-hour session. As former employees want players to understand this critical distinction. This isn't a strategy to win money. It's a strategy to lose money slowly while actually having a legitimate chance at walking away ahead on any given session. Even at 99.54% return with perfect play, you're still mathematically expected to lose 46 cents per $100 bet over time. So let's review what these former casino employees revealed through all their insider knowledge and years of first-hand experience watching players win and lose on these machines. Firelink tricks you with frequent bonuses that barely pay anything meaningful. Buffalo Diamond masquerades as an upgraded version while actually offering worse odds than the original game it replaced. It's Lightning Link. High Stakes combines low return percentages with accelerated bet velocity that shreds bankrolls in hours instead of days. Dragon Link Fortune Fever makes you fund progressive jackpot pools you'll statistically never win. Wheel of Fortune 4D exploits decades of brand trust while delivering reduced return percentages behind those familiar spinning wheels. Huff and Puff literally lies to your brain with losses disguised as wins, celebrating when you're actually losing money. And Zeus Unleashed combines every single manipulative trick into one devastating package that former employees described as borderline unethical. On the other side, the original 3-reel mechanical Wheel of Fortune machines and full-pay 9-6 jacks, or better video poker, offer significantly better odds with transparent gameplay that doesn't rely on psychological manipulation. The pattern former employees identified across all these conversations wasn't coincidental. Modern video slots systematically use psychological manipulation, deliberate complexity, and outright deception to maximize how much money players lose and how long they stay in their seats. What makes this even more disturbing is the industry trend these insiders described. Newer machines are incorporating more of these tricks, not fewer, because casino data proves they're devastatingly effective. What shocked me most while researching this video wasn't just learning about specific machines, yet it was understanding how deliberately these psychological tricks are engineered into the gameplay experience. Multiple former employees expressed genuine guilt about watching regular players lose money on machines explicitly designed to exploit human psychology and cognitive biases. These aren't accidents or coincidental design choices. These are features that teams of designers, mathematicians, and psychologists specifically created to maximize time on device and minimize player awareness of their actual losses. The legal reality is that everything I've described in this video is completely legal. Casinos aren't breaking any regulations or violating any laws. They're exploiting gaps in oversight and taking advantage of how regulations haven't kept pace with modern gambling technology. The question former employees kept raising isn't whether these practices are legal. The question is whether they're ethical. But now you have information that most casino players never learn. You can't eliminate the house edge through knowledge alone, but you can absolutely avoid the worst offenders on the casino floor. Even the better machines we discussed still mathematically favor the casino over time. This isn't about finding a way to win. It's about losing less money if you choose to gamble. If you're going to play slots anyway, and at least do it with your eyes open to what's actually happening. Walk past those 7 machines we discussed, and if you're determined to play something, choose games with transparent odds and published return percentages. This information could literally save you thousands of dollars over time. If you found this valuable, please subscribe because I have more insider information from former casino employees coming in future videos. Hit the like button so YouTube shows this to more people who need to see information. Casinos would prefer stayed hidden. Let me know in the comments whether you've played any of these 7 machines and whether you noticed the patterns these former employees described. Share your experiences so we can help other players make genuinely informed decisions. Next video, I'm revealing the slot machine myths that former employees say are completely false, including one widespread belief that actually makes you lose money faster than you would otherwise.